with the show. So let's meet Dan Freedman. Dan, hello.
Morning, Ben. How you doing? Hi, everyone.
Dan, it's great to see you today. Thanks so much for joining us. We've got loads to talk about. I thought perhaps to begin with, I could ask you some of my questions, and I wanted to kick off with a biggie. It's a huge one, actually. We know you now as a writer, but did you always want to be one? And if so, how did you get started? What began the journey?
I always thought it'd be the coolest thing in the world to be an author and to have your name on a book that could go everywhere. I thought that would be amazing, but I didn't think it would be for me. The main reason being, when I was at school, I actually thought I was pretty bad at writing. And of course, reading, which is so linked to writing, I struggled with. I can remember I would be reading a book, you know, the experience where you read 2 lines and you realize your mind has gone somewhere else and you haven't taken in the content, and then you try and read it again, the same thing happens, and then you just give up. And that was my experience of reading. So no, never in a million years did I think I could have been a writer. But I always loved football, and I didn't realize that you can read and you can write about football. That was what I loved so much. And on the way into school, I'd get a newspaper, turn it straight over to the match report, take in all the words, remember the vocabulary, learn how to express myself in that way. And it counts. And I guess you can trace, in terms of my journey, you can trace going from there through to what we're talking about today, and Jamie Johnson books, and amazingly being the National Literacy Trust Author of the Week. I would never have thought that in a million years. Very proud.
Absolutely. It's brilliant. I'm sure even just by saying this and sharing your story, you're making people realize who perhaps thought that reading or writing wasn't for them, that there's other ways in than just the ways that you might think the traditional ways. So we've heard about how you kind of, come to reading and writing in perhaps a slightly different way to how you might have thought, how other people might think. Can you tell us about who or what, aside from me, inspired you to actually get started with writing in the first place?
Yeah, and I think the point to make is whenever we talk about football, that's just because today we're talking about books that I've written, and I'm passionate about football, but whatever it is that people are passionate about, whether it's acting, whether it's being an astronaut, whether it's civil rights, whether it's how buildings are created, whatever your passion is, music, that is what you can use to express yourself. And reading and writing in that way doesn't feel like a task that someone else has set you that you have to do. It feels like an expression of what you love. So that is where I started to write about football. And also what I would say is the real things and real people you meet in your life, you can use that in your stories. I thought one of the reasons I thought I was rubbish at writing was because I thought to be a writer, you have to create new worlds and science fiction, and my brain couldn't do that. But no, that's one way. Another way is to observe what you see and who you know and use them. For example, in the Jamie Johnson books, I wanted a character that Jamie Johnson was going to go up against, a nemesis or someone to overcome. And I thought about my friend called Dill. Jim, if you've got that slide of my friend called Dill, there he is playing rugby a few years ago. Wow. And we went to school together. And I realized that if Dill hadn't have been my mate, if he'd have been someone who had come at me like that in a rugby match or a football match and really gone for me, and my whole school and life experience could have been different. And so there's a character in the Jamie Johnson books, and he's very big in the first book called The Kickoff, called Dylan Simmons. And he is really on Jamie's back. And he's created out of my mate Dill. As it happens, it's the sort of evil version, the alternate version, my mate Dill. So that's what I would say is use real characters, but you can then invert them, exaggerate them, twist them in such a way to make your story better. But because you're starting with reality, for me at least, I find as though that gives you the confidence to write your story with those characters.
Absolutely. My mind is racing as to what characters I would create. I mean, it would inevitably have to be someone that looks a bit like this, is adorable, but is a bit less active during one of these live events than Olive currently is. Could I just ask very quickly as well, Dan, you say that you've used inspiration from one of your actual real life friends there. What did Dill think of it when he found out that he'd become a character in your story, particularly one that's a bit more mean than he is in real life?
Yeah, Dill can take it. He's big enough and strong enough to take it. He's actually a swimming coach and deals with lots of young people. And I think every now and again, sometimes people put two and two together. He's one of the nicest, gentlest, kindest people I've ever met. I would like to place that on record, Dill.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we mentioned Jamie Johnson. We'll be talking a lot more about that a little bit later on, Dan. But just talking about your aspirations to become a writer, we now know you as a best-selling author, but is that always what you dreamed of? Was that the end goal, or had you even contemplated that was possible? What was your original dream to be?
Yes, I was incredibly naive, and when I started writing, it was just when Harry Potter had gone stratospheric. And I basically thought, okay, well, that's good. You know, a series of books about a kid being a wizard, that's gone rather well. I'll do a series of books about a kid trying to be a footballer. And I'm sure that will go equally as well. I'll be the next J.K. Rowling. Jamie Johnson will be the Harry Potter of soccer. Let's get cracking. And then I spent 3 years writing the book that became the kickoff. Got rejected by every single publisher to the point where they said, please don't even send us this Jamie Johnson stuff anymore. We're not even going to look at it until you've got an agent. So then I just got rejected by agents instead. And I wanted to give up. I really, really wanted to give up. Kept going with support from people. And then the first book came out, and then it kind of grew again from there. And now we're sort of, in a way, closer to what I first hoped. But yes, I think everyone has that dream. And then you realize to get a book published is really, really so difficult. And so it should be.
Absolutely. But I think that just goes to show as well, Dan, that, you know, a lot of the things that you want in life don't come easy. And the real message there is to not give up, to keep trying to dig deeper and to have faith in your own ability. It would have been really easy for you to have thrown in the towel after getting rejections and thought, well, maybe this isn't for me. But you knew that it was something that you were passionate about and you pursued it with that in mind and have reached this level of success now.
I tried to think of every rejection as a step closer to where I wanted to get. Not a no, but okay, this is another step you need to overcome to get to the yes.
And it's a learning process as well. And I know that we've got lots of people tuning in right now who are really enjoying just the fact that you're here and you're able to talk to us and tell us about your journey. So I'm going to go to some of the shout outs now and see who we've got with us. I should also point out as well that we've got loads of time for questions as well. So if you've got a burning question that you want to ask Dan Freedman, now is your chance. Tell us what that question is, along with your name and your age, and we'll do our very best to answer it. So we have got, let's have a look, shout-outs. We've got Kyle, who's 8 from Middlesbrough, Maya, who's 10 from Kettering, Tim, 10 from Portsmouth. We've got Chris and Josh in Cobalt, who are Wolves fans. That's Chris and Josh Cobold, who are Wolves fans from Stowmarket in Suffolk. Miss OC from King James's School Library. Dan, who's age 10, watching from Todmorden in Yorkshire. Ollie, who's 7, watching in Chester. Ben, great name Ben, who's 10 in Brunswick. Elaine from Northern Ireland. Monty, who's 9 from Suffolk. And Zoe, who's turning 10 this month. And she wants a happy birthday wishing, please, Dan.
Happy birthday, Zoe.
Great. And we'll do one more for now. Matthew, who's 10, watching from Black Horse School in South Gloucestershire. He loves Jamie Johnson, so he's hoping to be inspired with his least favourite subject, English. Well, it's interesting that he should say that, Dan, because I know that you didn't always get on particularly well with English yourself, did you? And one of the things that I think always terrified me at school about it was this idea that you'd write something and you'd pull yourself into it and then you'd get feedback about it, which isn't necessarily always good. You know, you might get told to write something differently. You'd spelt words wrong. Things didn't make sense. You hadn't got a grasp of it. And actually, this is the same when you're a grown-up author as well, isn't it? Because you have an editor who takes the role of a teacher and gives you advice and sometimes critique as well.
Absolutely. Happens to the best of us. And I think anyone who is watching today and has done any writing or got anything back at school with corrections on it, I feel your pain, but it doesn't necessarily have to be pain, is what I'd say. It is just the best bit of writing advice I ever got was from my teacher at school. And he said, Dan, just put something down on paper, then let's have a look at it together and we'll discuss it and we'll see if you can make it better, if we can make it better. And that gives you a great feeling because it helps you to understand that no one sits down and creates perfection first time round. That's not how it works. Writing is a process. You sit down, whatever's in your head, however ridiculous it is, you can put it on paper and then you can have a look at it. Jim, if we can show the slide of one of my books in the writing process. So everyone, here's 7 lines that I once wrote. And then I handed it in. There I am, in theory, this author, and then I hand it into my editor. And look, what we've done together, actually, her writing is the larger writing. My writing is the smaller scrawl. And we've asked ourselves the question, can anything be improved? And together we've jointly decided that essentially every single word could be improved. And that is okay, because my bosses out there, the kids that are reading these books, they could be doing a million other things with their spare time. For them to choose to read a book is an amazing choice, but we have to give them the best opportunity to do that by making the best book we can. And that's how you do it, by asking yourself that question. You may go through this 10 times and it's okay. And your teacher or your editor, they are the people who are helping you. It's another brain trying to help you to get to where you want to be, which in my case is to create something good enough for my bosses to choose to read the book out of their choice because they think they're going to enjoy it.
It's absolutely incredible, isn't it? When you see those 7 lines with all the advice and the corrections and the movement of the different, to actually look at that and not be disheartened and to think, this is someone who's trying to help me. This is someone who wants to make me better, to improve my writing. And it's just about changing the way that you think and that you approach the situation, isn't it? Because it's easy for someone to say something to you that maybe they want you to change. Maybe it's your writing, maybe it's the way you play football, maybe it's the way that you do whatever, and you can take that as an attack, whereas actually they may be trying to help you to be better.
That's what I was going to say. We'll probably end up talking a bit about Ronaldo. I know that when he was at United, he used to take a ball by himself, loads of balls, and go and practice his shooting. And all those errors or bit edits that you've seen there, they're like Ronaldo's missed shot, and you have to do them in order to know how to get it into the top corner. You have to miss in order to know how to become accurate.
That's an absolutely brilliant analogy, Dan. And I think that actually takes us quite nicely into what became your career, actually, which is you became a sports journalist. In fact, you had perhaps one of the best jobs in football because you were working with the England team, with the FA, travelling around with them as a football fan and someone who loves the game. How incredible was that opportunity?
It was a job of a lifetime. I wanted to be a footballer, like so many people. I wasn't good enough, but I was obsessed by football by the time I was 11. And my mum actually said to me, well, why don't you try and be a football journalist then? And I was like, you know what? That is not actually a bad idea. And when you look at it simply, football journalists get paid to watch football and travel around the world watching football and to meet the best players. And so once I knew that's what I wanted to do, I made that my goal. And in the school holidays, I would go and work for free, making the teas and coffees and doing the photocopying at football clubs. I worked at Arsenal, I worked at Radio 5, Sky Sports, ITV, Daily Express, Mail on Sunday, and ended up joining the FA at just the time where the internet was changing and websites were becoming very important parts of communication. And I became the editor for the FA, created thefa.com, and I was also editor of match programs, if you went to an England game or an FA Cup final. And part of that job was, as you say, to travel with the England team, wherever they went, to do the match reports. I went to 2 World Cups with them. And this was before social media. So if there was something that a player wanted to tell the world, they would come to me and say, Dan, can we do an interview? and I would do the interview with them. I was on the same side as them. I was employed by the same organization. And then it'd be my job to get it out to the press and to Sky and to the BBC. And so, in a sense, at that time, I was the voice of the players. That was my job.
Incredible. And you obviously got to work with some amazing and incredibly famous footballers during that part of your early career, not least the likes of Beckham and Rooney on the England team, but also a certain Cristiano Ronaldo towards the beginning of his career, it has to be said. So, you know, is there any truth in the rumour that Dan Freedman inspired him to become maybe the world's greatest ever footballer?
Good question, Ben. What happened was, United sold Beckham to Real Madrid, and they signed this kid called Ronaldo. As you know, he played so well in a friendly that the United players were telling Sir Alex Ferguson he had to sign Ronaldo. And I worked quite a lot with Man United because they kept getting to the FA Cup final programme. So I said to the club, can I interview this Portuguese kid? And they said, yeah, okay, because they trusted me and they knew I wasn't going to try and catch him out. So travel up to the Man United training ground, Carrington, and you go in through the security. And in the room there is waiting this Portuguese kid, 18, 19 years old, and a translator, because Ronaldo couldn't speak English at that time. And as you know, Ben, what you do as an interviewer, you try and open up in a way to make people feel comfortable. And so I thought I'll ask him a nice, easy question. And my first question was, so Ronaldo is a great name for a footballer. You know, how do you feel about carrying that name? And this 18-year-old kid who had not yet played in the Premier League said, I am the real Ronaldo. My name is Cristiano Ronaldo. The other Brazilian Ronaldo, that is not his real name. I am the real Ronaldo. And I was like, okay. Jim, if you can show actually how the page looked in the match program, and you'll see there it was a Q&A, and that very first question, first couple of questions was about being Ronaldo, and what we ended up talking about was his childhood, and how he was born in Madeira and left home when he was about 11 or 12. And the way I understand Ronaldo, people obviously think that he comes across sometimes as being arrogant and self-centered. The way I understand him is he gave up everything, his whole childhood, his family, his friends, to become what he hoped would be the best footballer in the world. And he's still telling himself every day and everyone else that the sacrifices he made are worth it because he has achieved what he wanted to go and achieve. And it was there that first time I met him. Second time I interviewed him, I said, we're very proud to have you playing in this country. And he likes to be appreciated. And I think if you understand his background and the sacrifices he's made, you may not necessarily like the way it comes across, but you can understand where he's coming from.
Absolutely. And I think as well, Dan, there's, in some ways, parallels between his career and yours, in that both of you had to work really hard to focus on that dream and to not give up. Ronaldo is renowned for his dedication and came from, like you say, Madeira, a small island that's not known for producing great footballers. So he had to work doubly hard to improve himself and to beat those expectations in a similar way that you, as perhaps a more reluctant reader and writer, had to overcome that initial kind of suspicion over the subject to become what you are today. And I think that takes us on really to that dream that you had about becoming the J.K. Rowling of the football world. What eventually was that moment that you realised that as amazing as your job was working with the England team, that you wanted to turn your attention to actually writing fiction books around football and the characters within that?
So I had all of these stories in my head. If you imagine 7 years living with Beckham and Rooney and Gerrard and some of the players we discussed, and everything they did, everything they ate, everything they said, every conversation I had with them about their upbringing was stuck in my head. And it was all there. And then I became aware that there weren't what I would call proper, lengthy, deep novels that had some football in it for, let's call it 9 to 12-year-olds. There were short stories for young kids about football, and there were autobiographies and biographies. but there weren't novels. And I thought, well, can we possibly bring the two together? And I realized as well that when I was at school, it wasn't that I didn't like reading, because of course I love reading now. It was the fact that the books I was being told and asked to read and the books that were out there, I just didn't feel as though they were for me. And so really what I was trying to do was write the kind of books that I would have loved to have read at school, using the experiences that I've been so fortunate enough to have, to try and make these stories realistic and exciting. So in a way, the books were for my younger self, and I was gambling on the fact that there were people out there who were like me.
And it's a gamble that certainly paid off, Dan. I mean, there can't be that many people in the UK who don't know who Jamie Johnson is. If you don't, firstly, where have you been for the last decade? And secondly, Dan, what can you tell us about Jamie, the character, and Jamie Johnson, the series?
So Jamie is, I kind of feel like so many of us had this dream to be a footballer. Jim, if you've got that slide of the kid in Brazil, maybe, whether you're brought up in England or Africa or Asia, or in this case, South America. I saw this picture once and I just thought it was everything. You know, for so many of us, all we need, even if we've got nothing, all we need is just a football and a dream. So Jamie Johnson is the kid with that dream, but he's also got very normal challenges. So at home, it's just him and his mum. His dad is not around all the time. His grandfather is there. He has got a brilliant best friend, a girl called Jack, but there is this bullying going on at school. So it's the kind of normal upbringing that so many of us have had. But then the extraordinary thing about Jamie Johnson is that, you know what, this kid has actually got the ability to do it. And so the stories are about the tension between his dreams, his ability to do it, but also his shortcomings, and his flaws and his inner demons. And you never know whether on any given day, is he going to be the hero that everyone looks up to, or is he going to do something silly and let himself down? And that's hopefully where the drama comes in.
Well, I mean, for sure, that jeopardy at the centre of the Jamie Johnson stories is so compelling. The characters feel so perfectly drawn and realistic. Is Jamie Johnson himself based on you or on someone that you know? Where did he come from?
Yeah, he's me, but then with the footballing ability and with the background of the players that I've met. As I said, people like Gerrard and Rooney, and Steven Gerrard in particular was brilliant. I told him that I'd been watching him and stealing from him for 7 years, in terms of what he'd been doing, and he was incredible. When the kickoff came out and no one had heard of Jamie Johnson, on the top of that book was a quote from Steven Gerrard saying, "You'll read this book and it'll make you want to get out there and play." And so Jamie Johnson, it's a kind of like it's a dream. Jim, have you got this slide where it says JJ signing? This is from an image from the TV show where he's signing for the club he loves. We'll have a look. And so, you know, that's the dream that we all have, isn't it, Ben? You know, if that was the Leeds shirt, that's what you would love, isn't it? And so it's that kind of idea of, you know, can you make your dreams come true? But there are no shortcuts and life's not perfect. So you know that it's not necessarily going to work out exactly as you might hope and dream. But that's where the drama is.
Yeah, for sure. And we mentioned Jamie's best friend, Jack, as well. Obviously, that's a strong female role model in these books. Why is her character so important and integral?
Well, Jack is, in many ways, the leader. She's the moral compass, and she's also the strength. Jamie is very, very. He can fly off the handle. He can lose direction, and she is incredibly strong and incredibly charismatic. I think we've got a picture of her as well, Jim. And she's a brilliant footballer herself. And I think she, in many ways, ties the whole stories together. And also, you know, we talked before about creating something that you wish you had. I guess for me in writing, it was like, I wish I'd have had a Jack in my life when I was taking some wrong decisions and needed someone that I respected to point me in the right direction.
Definitely. And also we should point out that Lena, who plays Jack, is an amazing footballer in real life too.
Yeah.
And viewers will have seen her on the TV series, which we've got to discuss, Dan, because when you write a book, I think it must be most authors' dream to see that vision realised. And the success that the Jamie Johnson series has experienced has been phenomenal. It really has become a sensation in kids' TV. It's all over the iPlayer all the time. There's so much, furore and fanfare around a new series being released. So can you tell us what it was like to actually experience your books being made into TV shows?
I knew that would be one of my dreams. And after the first couple of books came out, this lady came over from Hollywood. She was quite a big director, and she said, "We're going to turn it into a film. The deal's all done. I've spoken to your agent. This is going to become a film." And I never heard from her again. And so it was a bit like with the books. You have your hopes and you take certain steps, and then you fall down the ladder and get back up. And then a production company came and said, "We really understand the story you're trying to tell." And this production company were fantastic because they never gave up. You know what the BBC is like, and you know how many people go to the BBC with proposals for TV shows, and how many, there's, very, very few new ones each year. And this production company wouldn't give up, and they funded a little pilot to show what it would look like, did some brilliant casting, as you said, with some of the actors. And initially, it was just a little taster. The first series, which is, as you say, on the iPlayer now, was just 3 episodes to see if anyone would like it. And they did. And it's kind of grown from there. And the kids talk about it in school. And actually, a lot of the kids in schools, they started writing to the BBC too, I think, saying, "Can we please have a Jamie Johnson TV series?" So I think really, if it has been a success, that's brilliant. And I think it's because the kids feel like they own it, and it's for them and about them. And it is a magical feeling. If I go into a classroom and I say, "Who's heard of the character Jamie Johnson?" or "Who's watched the TV show?" and to see the hands go up, it's wonderful, absolutely brilliant.
Well, let's see. Let's hear from some of those people who have been commenting, shall we? As I read out some of these comments, I'm also going to leave my little pup to go out and enjoy herself outside. She's getting a little bit agitated. We need to get her into the books a bit more, I think, Dan. But right now, we've got... who have we got? We have got Matthew, who's from Leeds, loves Jamie Johnson, and I love Leeds, Matthew, so well done to you. We've got Class 6A watching live from the Orion Primary School in North London. Thank you for tuning in. We've got Dylan in Leicester, who's 11, Riley, who's 11 in Chesterfield, Eva, who's 9 from Stoke, and wants you to shout out her girls' team, Blurton Reds Emeralds. Hello to all of you at Blurton Reds Emeralds. Zahid from Pakistan, and Jude, who's 9, from Chesterfield as well. So people from all over the world tuning in, Dan, which is fantastic. Brilliant. And great to hear from so many of you who are really big fans of Jamie Johnson. Just away from JJ for a second, Dan, and I will remind everyone who's watching as well that you can ask Dan your own questions. So there's a little bit more time to put those in the comments before we come to them. You have written another book recently called Unstoppable. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how a certain Manchester United striker came to be such a big fan of it?
Sure, yes. So with Jamie Johnson, the question then was, well, what am I going to do next? I thought I would still like to have something sporty in the next thing I wrote, but to do something different. And yeah, Unstoppable, I've got it here actually. It's about twins and they're 14 years old. And the sporty element is they both think they're going to be the best in the world at their sport. The boy, Kane, believes he's the next Ronaldo. The girl, Roxy, is sure she can be the next Serena Williams. The problem is the family is under so much pressure. The dad has just lost his job, which is happening to lots of people at the moment. So there's not much money. There's not much time. The mum works in a care home. And they've only got one car. And as these kids, teenagers, are getting better and better at sport, one needs to be, 100 miles away. They've got a trial for Southampton. Whereas Roxy's got a tournament in Birmingham. They can't do both at the same time, and they have to choose. The parents have to choose. And it seems like such a sin to choose between any children, but to choose between twins seems so wrong. And that's where the story begins, is how these twins who used to be so close have now become rivals for the possibility to achieve their dream that they feel is going to define their life. And if you're not chosen, you feel abandoned. And if you are chosen, how do you justify that choice? And I was speaking to someone, and she said to me, you know who you really need to get to have a look at this is Marcus Rashford, because he is very, very much entwined and understanding and talking about what young people are going through today. He's a terrific role model and very aware of everything that's happening in the world, both in this country and in America at the moment. And I said, you're right. And I had one or two contacts. And as I said, I'd dealt with Man United before. And I just sent a book to him, and that was it. The next thing I know, Jim, maybe you've got this slide. On World Book Day, Marcus Rashford put out this photo and this quote. And it's absolutely incredible, because there are so many books published, and to get the word out about a book is not easy. And for him to choose that book on World Book Day and to make such a nice comment about it was a huge thing, really. I'm very grateful to him. And it just shows you footballers do get a bad rap sometimes, but here is one of the most important players in the world at the moment using his platform to encourage kids to read.
It's absolutely incredible, isn't it? And Dan, I know that we've got loads of questions coming in from our viewers about Jamie Johnson, about writing, about you and what you were like growing up. So I'm just going to ask you one more of my own questions. And that is, of all the incredible people that you've met, that you've worked with, the footballers, you know, there's so many great names there. Is the one that stands out to you as your defining inspiration?
Yes, there's someone on a different level. We talk about this sometimes when I visit schools, and we talk about, okay, Ronaldo and Messi, but on a completely different level in terms of someone I was fortunate enough to meet was the England team played a game in South Africa when I was working with them. And Nelson Mandela was leading the country, and he wanted to use this match against England to announce South Africa's bid to host the Football World Cup. And his job at that time as leader of the country was to bring the country together and to show the world what the new South Africa was going to be like. And he wanted sport to be a part of that. So there's a film called Invictus. He was there when South Africa won the Rugby World Cup. And Jim, if you've got a picture of the England team meeting Nelson Mandela. So you can see David Beckham, and he's about to hand over an England shirt to Nelson Mandela. This is at Nelson Mandela's home. And then Rio Ferdinand is looking down on Nelson Mandela, just thinking, you've changed the world. And then right on the very end, that's me there looking, and I got to shake his hand. I got to say hello to him. It's the greatest single experience I've ever had in my life. And I think at a time now, again, particularly with everything that's happening in America, let's bear in mind, Nelson Mandela, what he wanted to do was to bring his country together. And he thought that sport was a way that could be done. And I guess in a small way, that's what we're talking about today, Ben, isn't it? Is how the power of sport and how it can bring people together and give you new opportunities. And yeah, different level to anything else.
Well, that's absolutely incredible, Dan. Thanks for sharing that story with us, and a brilliant message, I think, as well, to sort of finish this part of the interview before we come to your questions. And before we do that, I'm just going to take a look at some of them, see what we've got coming in. But Dan, could you just give us some of your quick fire sort of top writing tips? Because I know that you've got so many great pearls of wisdom to share.
Yes, and I have, by the way, got a page on this on my website in case people do want to get a bit more information. But I would say, as we've discussed, I would say use real things that have happened in your life, because then you're confident. Don't ever think that you have to create perfection first time round. Ask yourself about your characters. What are their secrets? What are their challenges? What's their favorite pizza? Because if you know your characters really well, they'll write the story for you. So I'd say those three are something for getting on with, and then I've got more on my website too.
That's amazing advice. Thanks, Dan. Right, well, let's take some of the questions we've had in from our audience. And this first one comes in from Theo, who's age 10. And Theo asks, who was your idol, Dan, when you were growing up?
Hi, Theo. Let's start with football. Keep it to football, really, probably, because that when I was growing up, football was my whole life. And so you're talking about the era of people like Paul Gascoigne and Ian Wright, Roy Keane, Eric Cantona. As you'll see with those kind of players, they were just like I was describing Jamie Johnson. Brilliant, but also capable of letting themselves down or making wrong decisions. And so they were a drama themselves. So those are the kind of players that I really, really found compelling, Theo.
A similar question, but I think there could be a different response from you on this, Dan. Ben, who's 10 from North London, asks, who's your favourite footballer? He doesn't give a time frame, so it could be now, it could be, of all time, it could be from when you're growing up. But is there one footballer for you who stands out as your absolute favourite?
I loved Van Basten when I was really young. He was incredible. Look up his overhead kick for Ajax against Den Bosch. Whenever I'm in schools, I show that goal. And then from more modern times, Gareth Bale, as a British player, to be the most expensive player in the world, to go to Real Madrid, to win the Champions League, to score a bicycle kick in the Champions League final, to take your nation to the semi-finals of an international tournament. He's a winger. Jamie Johnson, definitely. Gareth Bale was in my mind when I was writing Jamie Johnson as well. So I really, really admire what he's achieved so much.
Fantastic. I didn't see that one coming down, but I'm really glad that you shared that with us. Let's have a look. This one comes in from Philip, who is in year 6. He says, will there ever be another Jamie Johnson novel?
Hi, Philip. I would like to think so. And I think if you want it, I will do it. I just wanted to do something different with Unstoppable. But yes, in the future, I think that would be really, really nice. And obviously, I've got lots of ideas in my head. So I hope so, Philip, yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dan, for that. And for Philip, we've got this one from Saida in year 6. What's your personal favourite book of the ones that you've written down, and why?
Saida, that is really, really tough because it's a bit like asking, we were talking with Unstoppable about choosing between children. It's a bit like asking a parent which is your favourite child and why, because the books, they feel like your babies. So I like them all in different ways. But perhaps, Saida, for today, I'll say The Kickoff, because that was the first book I ever wrote. It's what made everything else possible in a way. And also, I'm incredibly grateful to Scholastic, the publishers of Jamie Johnson, because they've made the whole book available for you to download for free for the whole of June, which is absolutely brilliant. So if you haven't read it yet, Saida, that's going to be on the website for you to download for free. So today, that is my favourite.
That is amazing. And a great little plug there as well, Dan. So remember, you can get that book for free right now. Check it out after this. Let's have just 2 more questions, shall we? This one comes in from Elaine, who has asked, which Jamie Johnson character would you like to be, Dan?
Well, Elaine, that is an easy one. Although there are lots of great characters, I want to be Jamie Johnson. In a way, that's the whole point of the books. I couldn't be this brilliant footballer in real life. So I had a little daydream, and Jamie Johnson is the daydream.
And let's face it, I'm boggy, aren't I? Brilliant. All right, Dan, one more question, I think. And I don't know the answer to this, so I'm quite excited to hear. Kirsty asks, how did you come up with the name Jamie Johnson?
Kirsty, I wanted it to be an average name because I wanted, as we discussed, everyone to feel as though they could be or they knew Jamie Johnson. And so although there's no such thing as ordinary, I felt Jamie Johnson was the kind of person it wasn't, for example, Peregrine Absquark. It was a sort of more everyday name. I also felt as though there's a kind of rhythm to it, Jamie Johnson. And of course the alliteration too. If you want your name to be catchy, to have alliteration is good. And I like the nickname JJ, which is what people call him. So it sort of comes together in that way. As it happens, whilst it was in draft form and almost until the first book was published, it was actually called Jamie Johnston. And there's a Scottish element to the books, and that's a bit more the Scottish name. But then I took out the T because I thought it would just make it easier to write and to spell. So there was quite a lot of, my favourite author is a guy called William Boyd, and I went to see him speak. And one of the things he said was never lose the opportunity of naming your characters, because that is their label, that you're saying something about your character. And so I did think long and hard about the name.
And it's a good job you did, because it's all over the books, it's all over the TV series, and it is one of the catchiest character names. Even though it has that everyman quality, I think it really, really helps to sell the whole concept. So yeah, a simple name in many ways, Dan, but a really effective one. And those questions were all very effective too. I hope you enjoyed answering them. I thought they were fantastic.
Yeah, brilliant.
Brilliant. Well, Dan, thank you so much for joining us. Please do stick around until the end, though. A couple of things to speak to you about. I hope you at home are feeling as inspired as I am right now to get writing. And thank you for joining in as well. It's been brilliant to hear from you and brilliant to see some of your comments and questions as well. Remember, as Dan mentioned, you can grab your free copy of the first book in the series of Jamie Johnson, available on the National Literacy Trust Family Zone area of the website. So please do check that out after this. And we also referenced as well the Premier League Primary Stars Family Challenge that, Dan, you have set this week. So can you tell us what that challenge is all about, please?
Yes, and this challenge is on plprimarystars.com. And the challenge we did, football and writing, we challenged people to create their own character that could go into a fictional football story. Could be the Jamie Johnson world or another world. And yeah, to create one that would make a really, really good story. And then we said to enter, all you need to do is take a photo of you with your work and send it in via email or via Twitter.
That's amazing. I know that we've already had some brilliant entries, and I'm sure after this, there'll be even more of you inspired to create your character. And it's a brilliant thing to do anyway, but there's even more of an inducement to do it, if you like, now, because I can announce for the very first time that one lucky person who completes the Premier League Primary Stars Create a Character Challenge will win a visit to their school from the actual real-life Premier League trophy. So when it's safe to do so, if you're that winner, you'll have the trophy come to your school. Everyone will know it's thanks to you, and you'll get to have your photograph with it and to ask questions about it. It's an incredible experience. Dan, I know that you've been at some of these trophy visits. Tell me what the atmosphere is like.
Oh, I mean, for weeks, for the kids and the staff and the teachers to know that the trophy is coming, it lights up the whole school and the whole community. And then on the day, this gleaming trophy is there for everyone to have their photo taken with and to stand next to. And it's a brilliant way to light up a school. And it's going to be a brilliant reward for anyone that is lucky enough to win this challenge.
Amazing. Well, if you want that person to be you, then you know what you've got to do. Create your football character, get it submitted, and keep your fingers crossed. Best of luck with that. Well, with that announcement still fresh, I'm afraid that is all we've got time for today. Thank you so much to you for tuning in for the Premier League, the National Literacy Trust, Scholastic, Jim and Alice, who've been working away behind the scenes, and of course, Mr. Dan Freedman as well. What a pleasure it has been to have you on board, Dan. Thank you.